Fine prince you turned out to be, flinging rocks like any low-born ruffian. Why, I've never been unhorsed by such a scurvy trick.
If I hadn't lost my weapon, sir, I would have done it proper.
Don't be impertinent. If you're King Aguir's son, why did you fling that rock?
I thought you were the knight who was after me.
What knight?
All I saw was his black armor.
The Black Knight? You saw him?
I near had his lance in my back. Who is he, sir?
The ghost.
Well, ghosts don't chase a man in daylight.
Right.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Movie Oblivion, the podcast about feature films based on comic strips and comic books that people have stopped talking about. This week we are talking about Prince Valiant from 1954. I'm your host, Kumar. My co-host is Jordan. How are you, Jordan?
Well, I'm very well, thank you.
Great. Okay, so we're going to start talking about Prince Valiant. We've got two Prince Valiant movies to cover. Last week I said we'd be doing them back to back. I don't know why I made that crazy, irrational decision. Because as far as in the very front of my mind, there's only two like fantasy movies on our list, and they're both Prince Valiant.
They're both Prince Valiant, right?
And
fantasy is a debatable term as well, as we'll get into.
Yeah.
Maybe we have half as much reading to do this fortnight.
Maybe. I will say, I mean. So I've read some. I had some of the. So Prince Valiant was started in 1937. It's still going.
Amazing.
It's currently. I think it's being written by Mark Schultz and drawn by Tom Yeats. And you might remember, our 3 or 4 listeners out there might remember last week, Steve Bissett talked about how Tom Yeats was working on Swamp Thing and hated it because he was an adventure cartoonist. And now he's working on Prince Valiant, which is, where he should be. So started in 1937 by Hal Foster, who was originally from my neck of the woods. He was from Halifax, Nova Scotia. And for a while, Cal Johnson at Strange Adventures in Halifax, which is one of the best comic shops there is, was trying to get a Hal Foster statue built in Halifax. And I don't think he's signing petitions and going to the City Hall and stuff, and I don't think it ever came about.
What a shame. Is Prince Valiant popular, or has it been popular in your neck of the woods?
No.
Right.
No.
I see the problem.
No, and this is going to be especially. I had already planned jokes for next week. Next week's 1997 Prince Valiant, because I'm like. 1954 Prince Valiant, I can kind of understand. 1997 Prince Valiant, like, what movie producer was like, hey, we can make some money off this property that everybody's so excited about?
Okay, so it's not just me, because I was wondering, because this is another, like Little Abner, this is another, and it's a comic strip, a newspaper comic strip, this is another comic that I had never heard of.
Well, okay, so this one it's a little different than not knowing about Little Abner because there's no dailies. I think it's only the Sunday pages. So you'd have to have a newspaper that would actually, and the Sunday strips were like the full size of the page. There was big glorious things, and I own a few volumes of these, and they're like a large format book to fit the whole page on them. And they were being put out, I think, by Fantagraphics probably in the 90s. I don't know if there's a current reprinting of them. I haven't heard of any major archival project lately, but there might be one out there. But back in the 90s, early 2000s, Fantagraphics was putting out these soft covers that were like 50 pages each, maybe, in color. But they were not, the newspaper pages in a newspaper would be really big, and they would be running Prince Valiant really big. But you'd have to have a newspaper that was choosing to run it. You'd have to be looking at it you'd have to be a kid that was looking at it on a Sunday or seeking it out, which, I always looked for the Sunday strips because they were in color or they were double size or whatever. So, you have to be kind of seeking it. But I never ran in any newspaper that I knew about. I only read it much later in those Fantagraphics reprints myself.
I see. Because it was one of those, I was wondering, because it's one of those questions, like, why do some cultural properties cut through and others don't, all the way down here in our current neck of the woods, Kumar, Australia. So, why don't I know about Prince Valiant? Because reading the comics,
Yeah.
Reading the comics, it was like a bolt, like things crystallized in my mind.
Right.
Oh my goodness, I just got a bunch of jokes that I never understood before.
Yeah. In fact, when I was watching the movie, I was like, I wanted to make a joke about his Prince Valiant haircut, and I was like, no, I can't because he is Prince Valiant.
Look at his dorky Prince Valiant haircut. Oh, yeah, a page boy haircut is called a Prince Valiant, isn't it?
Yeah.
I never knew why. Also, I was watching Who Framed Roger Rabbit the other month.
Yeah.
Bob Hoskins' character wields a singing sword.
Yeah.
In one scene. It's like it's bendy and it's like Frank Sinatra and it's completely useless. And the gag is, I'm watching and think, what's the gag here?
Right.
The sword is Frank Sinatra? Why is this the singing? Prince Valiant wields the singing sword.
Right.
That's where it comes from. One more, the Spaceballs movie.
Yeah.
Princess Vesper's suitor is called, or aspiring suitor is called Prince Valium.
Yeah.
And he's always falling asleep.
Yeah.
I was reading the comics and I thought, oh wow, I finally get those jokes.
Yeah, right.
So again, much like Little Abner, my mind is being broadened by this podcast in ways that I couldn't have imagined.
Well,
a few weeks ago.
You're gonna have to. I can't wait for our Phantom episode because I'm gonna force you to come up with all the answers as to why the Phantom is so gigantic in Australia and nobody else in the world cares at all.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about it today. Why do I know Phantom and not Prince Valiant? It's just one of those mysteries. But perhaps we can get to the bottom of it on the week that we get to the Phantom. But
yes.
For now, we're talking about Prince Valiant.
Yeah.
So, Kumar, do you want to talk a bit more about the comic?
Sure. So, okay, so it started in 1937. It's basically about this this king, this Nordic king, he's called King of Thule.
Thule.
Right, which was a mythical, like it's a real mythical place. Like there's like poems and stuff, you know.
Yeah, it was what the ancient Greeks labeled the farthest island
right. Okay.
on their maps as Thule, and the Latin word for kind of like back of beyond is Ultima Thule.
Okay.
Which means furthest Thule.
Okay. So he's basically been ousted from his lands, and he lands in the shores of England during Arthurian times, and they are forced to. They fight the locals, and the locals are like, oh, you have to stay out here in the fens, basically. So they are allowed to stay. The locals basically permit them to stay, but they have to stay in these fens. And the king has this young son, Valiant, or Val, and he has kind of boyhood adventures out on the fens. He makes a friend, and he goes hunting and stuff, and and then eventually he meets this witch who foresees his future. So he fights the witch's son, and then takes the son back to the witch after he injures the guy. And he's like this big hulking brute of a man. The witch is angry and tells him his future and says he's going to be miserable. He's going to have all sorts of awesome adventures, but he's going to be miserable.
He'll never find contentment.
And he gets home. He finally gets home after a few days out there after his adventuring, because he had seen a light, and he went to investigate the light. And it was actually the witch's home fire. And he gets home and he finds his mother is dying or is dead.
First lost that the witch warned him of.
Yes, and then he's like, well, screw this being stuck on the fence. I'm going to go out and see the world. So he goes out and he encounters some knights, and he's like, whoa, I want to be a knight. And they're like, well, you got to get a horse and stuff. You got to do all this stuff. He's like, well, I'm going to do that stuff. And he meets his old childhood friend who played with on the fens. And he goes out and he tracks down, he actually captures a wild horse through a lot of trial and error. And then he meets... Is that when he meets Gawain?
Sir Gawain.
Yeah, and then he fights Gawain. Then they get set upon by this bad knight, and they fight the bad knight, and then they have to fight a quote unquote dragon. We'll talk about all that stuff because to me it's super fun. But then they take this guy. They've captured him. He helped them during the battle, but they're like, well, we got to still take him for trial to King Arthur to Camelot. They go to Camelot.
Kumar, I have to ask at this point, are you going to go through all 90 years of Prince Valiant's adventures?
No, this is all in volume 1. This is all in the first
This is
couple of
volume
years.
one.
He actually there's a gap. It's interesting. There's like a couple of time jumps because he's kind of a little kid or teen, maybe preteen when he arrives on the shores of England, and by the time he leaves home, he's maybe in his late teens, maybe early 20s. He's a young man. We're not really sure, but some years have passed. He's grown up in a period of about 10 or 20 strips.
Well, I, like you, only read I read the first volume, so
Yeah.
I followed along with the story that you're describing now. But I understand that as the comic goes on through the years, Prince Valiant ages unusually. I think for a comic book character, he ages, and as time goes on, he has more and more adventures. He becomes a knight. He marries. He fathers children of his own.
Yeah.
He reclaims his kingdom, I think, eventually.
Yeah.
He visits the far corners of the world. He just goes on endless adventures. Thanks to that witch's curse.
Yes, right.
Incidentally, I just want to mention the witch briefly. In the first panel, the witch is seen. I think she's introduced as a horrid witch.
Yes.
And then in
her
the
name
next
is Horrid.
panel, her name is Horrid.
Horrid. There's some editing bugs in the strips that I noticed.
Which is referred to as Horrid from thenceforth. And I can't help but wonder if that was a typo or an error.
Yeah, no, and there was like someone's castle. The castle was spelled differently, like it was Erie or an Irie, like it changed. It went a bit back and forth, like there wasn't really some kind of editorial oversight happening. Somebody missed a few things here and there like that. Yeah. So then he basically ends up. I can't remember. There's a couple of adventures in that first volume. So just like then after that, once he's at Camelot, it's like, okay, here we go. Like shit's gonna happen, and fun stuff's gonna happen. Every few weeks there's gonna be a new adventure.
Yes, the witch's curse.
Yeah.
He would never find contentment, but that just meant that he was always seeking it in these amazing adventures. I think it's quite a good kind of framing device.
Yeah.
Can I talk a bit about? Can we talk a bit about how the comic looks?
Yeah.
Because it looks wonderful.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Well, first of all, it's drawn beautifully.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Every panel is it's like a work of art.
Yeah,
It's really amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. They really should have built that statue of Hal Foster in Halifax, because he deserved it for sure. It is
the work he put in it. Like it's really incredible.
Yeah.
I suppose it's once a week, but even so. I mean,
especially there were some panels where like I noticed he was like Val would be like going through the woods, and he's drawn like he's painted the woods completely, like all the trees. He hasn't. I mean, there's some sure he cheats on some panels, but sometimes he's like, okay, I'm gonna do this forest, and he does the whole forest, and Val's in there, and you really get a sense of it, and he can do everything from every angle. I mean, Camelot just looks glorious when they arrive, and it's he's one of all those guys, those early newspaper cartoonists were the bomb. They really put a lot of care and love into it. And almost all these guys worked on Tarzan at some stage, including Harold Foster.
Yes,
yes. And we'll find even Alex Raymond, who did Flash Gordon, I think had a run on Tarzan as well. I might be wrong about that, but we'll get to that when we get to Flash Gordon. Anyway, the art is really, and I can't really, anything you find online if you look for Prince Valiant, you try to read it, it's like this kind of chopped up half pages. It would have been amazing to see in the full Sunday format that it was meant to be.
Well, the one that you linked me to, where you could just sort of scroll.
Yeah,
you didn't have to click from page to page. You could scroll through the whole thing. That felt.
That's better. Yeah.
It felt better. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's so colourful. I love the colour.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of the knights in brilliant reds and yellows.
Yeah.
With their tabards, over their chainmail. It looks, it's just really, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I really loved looking at the images.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a peculiarity with it. It doesn't use word balloons.
Yes. Oh, yeah, we have to talk about this. So it's almost like illustrated story, quote unquote. So we're kind of on the edge of Some people would argue this is not comics.
Is it a stylistic choice, or the word balloons just not invented?
There were 100. there were definitely word balloons. It was a stylistic choice, and you can see how, if you had put word balloons in, how they would have interfered with the artwork.
Absolutely.
In a negative way. And I think it was absolutely the right choice for Prince Valiant. When we get to Flash Gordon, again, he goes back and forth. Alex Raymond sometimes went with the balloons, sometimes went with the captions, but his art style was also similar to Hal Foster's. It was really lush, colorful, detailed, feather.
Just don't want any word balloons detracting from the spectacle.
So
I must admit, reading the captions, I think I like, because he's written it in a kind of. It's a kind of an archaic. It's not exact. It's definitely kind of the vernacular, but it's made deliberate hints at having a more formal style of speaking, while still being obviously brief, because it has to be fit in a very small space. And I think reading them, I feel like it gives it a really kind of stark, almost mythic quality.
Yeah.
Like a tapestry almost.
Yeah, or
like
like something that's being told to you orally.
Yes. Or conversely, like a silent film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely an experience.
And I think it also, the thing I like about it too is it allows him to be really elastic with the amount of time that passes between the gutters, because it could be a week later. Gutters is the official term.
I haven't heard that term before.
Okay, so it could be a week between panels, and he could just tell you that, or it could be him leaping off off the tower in one panel and then punching the guy in the neck. Just whatever he wants it to be.
Elastic with time like that, in a way, it couldn't be with the immediacy of kind of like the word balloons. Very good.
Yeah, because the word balloons, you would have to put in a narrative caption that says 1 week later. You'd have to interfere in some way that was not part of the standard flow of how it was happening.
Yes, it's less novelistic and more mythical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. All right, things I didn't especially like.
Okay.
Dinosaurs.
Oh, come on. I love these dinosaurs. I absolutely loved it. Whenever he mentioned, so he was doing something really strange at the beginning. He's like, "Oh no, here comes the dragons," and the dragon is like a brontosaurus or something.
Yes.
And it's like, whoa, okay, this is an interesting choice. It's almost like, I don't know quite what it's like, 10 years down the line of the strip or whatever.
I read it peters out. I read the fantastical elements peter out.
Well, it seemed to be he was trying to explain the fantastical element with like something scientific, like, aha, back in the day when they fought dragons, maybe they were actually fighting dinosaurs, almost vaguely something like that, because they encounter another dragon later on. Gawain's like, dragon, and he leaps down, and it's a giant crocodile. So it's not like in England, it's not any normal sized crocodile. It is it's a dragon sized crocodile, but it's a crocodile. Like, he's tried to come up with a thing, and I wonder if also maybe he was dependent on photo reference for stuff, and maybe he obviously didn't have reference for a dragon, but maybe he had crocodiles. Oh, he wouldn't have for dinosaurs, I guess, so maybe it doesn't hold water. But
it's fine. I mean, it's a bit like Conan, isn't it? Because except this is only, I think this comic is only set about 1500 years ago or 1300 years ago.
Right.
So it's a bit less like Conan, which is supposed to be in some sort of very, very distant past that archaeology can't reach.
Yeah.
But this is, I mean, I think we'd know if there were saltwater crocodiles in the fens in.
Yeah.
I'm being a bit of a pedant.
So wait a second. So are you
file it under early installment weirdness, because I think he does start to. He does start to tone that stuff down.
Okay. Would you have preferred it if it was like a dragon that showed up?
No, I wouldn't. See, I'm just being a nitpicker.
See, I think it's fun. I think it's there's a surprise there that it's a dinosaur, or a surprise that it's a. Gawain says in one panel, dragon, and then in the next panel you're seeing, oh, it's just a huge crocodile. That to me is like,
it's the Loch Ness monster.
Yeah, it's like, to me, it's kind of a twist. It's something more interesting than if it had just been a
acceptable narrative device to use in that situation, isn't it? While
Yeah.
maintaining a sense of realism, even despite yet playing with the tropes of high fantasy dragons, wizards,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was surprised by the witch. I mean, the witch is... Because when I saw the dragon, the first dragon they fight is that dinosaur, and then there was a witch. I was like, oh, okay, so there's magic happening here as well. Because she does foretell the future, and it seems to be correct.
Yes. I mean, yes, that's true. But I think there's degrees of this, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can have prophecies, I think, in things like historical fiction, and not. You can have prophecies, but not, like wizards shooting fireballs out of staffs. And there's no wizards shooting fireballs in Prince Valiant, but there is a bit of prophecy and a bit of hypnosis, and there are big lizards ambling around the fens of Eastern England.
Yeah.
But no, I think you're right. It's fine. It's fine. Is there anything you don't like about or that you have any questions or ambivalencies about?
Well, I would say that the things that I liked are where I loved Val's industriousness, and I loved the way he'd fall on his butt, and he would be able to, especially those early chapters, because he's apparently learned a lot. Like, he's able to build a trap to catch a horse. He's able to build his bolo. Like, he's able to work this stuff out, and I think it takes him like a week or a couple of weeks to actually catch a horse or something, we're told.
He's very dynamic, but not in what you would call a Mary Sue kind of way.
No, that's exactly it. Like, he has to work stuff out. He's like, I'm gonna be a knight, and they're like, you can't just become a knight. You got to do all this shit first. And he's like, okay, I'll do all that stuff, and he's not really great at some of it, and he's got to work at stuff to get it right or whatever.
He's got endless energy, and he's likes fighting. Like, he's hot-headed. He's a bit impetuous and hot-headed.
Love that.
But he's not. But he's not a berserker or a ruffian or a thug.
Yeah.
He has kind of like an honest enjoyment for fighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
there's a moment where when he arrives in Camelot, he's hanging out with the other squires. He becomes a squire because he can't just become a knight, as he's learned. So he becomes a squire to Gawain, and I can't remember what he's sitting around the table with the other squires, and he tells them something. I can't remember what. Maybe it was about his ambitions or whatever. And they laugh at him, and he attacks them. He takes them all on at once, and then they throw him in a cell.
Yes.
And I really did love that moment.
It captures a bit of the sense of a time when it was virtuous to be violent.
Yes. Or at least to defend yourself. Defend your honor.
To be correct. To have physical courage.
Yes.
To be a warrior.
Yeah.
Was something to which, it was a privileged caste and a thing to which you could aspire and be honorable, which is something which is not present in a lot of our modern storytelling.
Yes.
But it feels very, I don't want to say quaint, but it feels, I don't want to say quaint because quaint is a bit pejorative, it's a bit of a dysphemism. I want to say that it's wholesome wholesomely old-fashioned.
Yeah.
in its approach to the boisterousness of and physical courage of youth. Yeah.
I will say that said, it is sneakily super violent. He kills people all the time. Yes. And again, Foster makes great use of the gutters here because he will not show the death.
No.
He will show the attack, the launch, and he will show Val standing over the corpse. And there's corpses in this comic, and at the
Yes.
at the
This
end
is a
there's
boisterous young man that just loves a good scrap, but he's a killer.
yeah.
He's a murderer, really.
And somehow he got away with it. I also noticed there's a panel early on when they first land in England, when the Vikings first land, that there's like they're bathing nude, and I was like, oh, this is, you don't usually see this in a newspaper comic strip.
Quite on, pretty early, some buttocks there,
Yeah,
some male buttocks.
some male buttocks. But there's this in the final sequence in the first year. This castle has supposedly been taken over by an ogre, and he goes there, and before he gets to the castle, he comes to this forest, and there are all these corpses hanging from trees, dead men hanging from the trees, and I was like, wow, this is a shocking thing to be opening on Sunday morning while you're having your waffles. It's it is innocent, like you say, but I think he's hidden some. He's tried to tell these traditional stories with this amount of killing in them, and he's kind of hidden them in a way, the way that comics perfectly hides. And I think in the movie, when we get to it, I think they had to work hard to get around that, because I think he only kills one person in the whole movie. And in fact, the King Arthur says to him, to be a knight, how many people have you killed for the kingdom, or something to that effect.
He says killed. He doesn't say enemies have you defeated. He says how many people have you killed.
Yeah, and he hasn't killed any.
Enemies of the kingdom have you killed. Yeah.
He hasn't killed any, but in the comic, by the time he reaches Camelot, he's killed like 20 dudes. Probably.
It's true. It's true. Valiant has a very distinctive haircut, as I think we've discussed.
Yeah.
Page boy bob,
Yeah.
which I think he maintains for his whole lifetime.
Yeah.
I think in the comics, because it wouldn't be it'd be like Indiana Jones without the hat.
That's
it
right.
It would be Prince Valiant without the Prince Valiant haircut. Does and he's a very pretty man. So sometimes he looks a bit like Liza Minnelli.
Right.
In some of the panels.
Yeah. Did you notice Jack Kirby's The Demon show up at the very end of Volume 1?
I didn't make it all the way to the end. So
Okay.
Jack Kirby's, what is it, Etrigan?
Yeah. So he disguises himself to scare this ogre to death. And the ogre, again, this is an interesting thing about the magic. He talks about ogres. Ogres are mentioned a few times, and finally this girl, Princess Eileen, I think, comes to him and says, my castle's been taken over by an ogre. And he's like, okay, we'll go liberate your castle. And he gets there, and it might just be a big ugly dude. It might not be a magical ogre. It might just be a big gross guy. We're not sure what the word ogre really means. So he disguises himself. He kills this goose, and he uses his body parts to create this mask for himself, including, like, he uses the fins, the webbed feet, as ears and stuff. And this was Jack Kirby's he lifted it directly from Prince Valiant when he designed the Etrigan the Demon. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about the film?
Yeah, let's get to the film. But I will say, so I was talking about, should we have really done these two movies back to back? Actually, I'm looking forward to reading more Prince Valiant next week. I am actually, for me, it was really a fun. It's just constant, innocent kind of fun, and like full of surprises. It's just pure boys' adventure is what it is, really. I really didn't have any. Yeah, I didn't have any nitpicks that I can really think of.
I don't have genuine nitpicks. There were just some things that I thought would spark discussion, and it certainly did. That's good. But I do have nitpicks with the film.
I have nitpicks too, but I did enjoy, I'm going to say, the first hour of it quite a bit. Okay, movies from 1954, directed by Henry Hathaway, who I only know from, he directed the John Wayne, the original True Grit. And
really?
Apparently he did a lot of Westerns with John Wayne. But I haven't seen or heard of anything else he's done except for that. The movie's starring, there's some heavy hitters in here. There's James Mason and Janet Leigh.
Yes.
Prince Valiant is played by Robert Wagner, a young 24-year-old Robert Wagner. which was a real surprise because I knew he was in the movie, and then I started watching. I was like, wait, who's playing Prince Valiant? And he is Valiant, but he's third billed in the opening credits. I guess James Mason and Janet Leigh were bigger names, although this is 1954, so for Mason, it's before North by Northwest and before Lolita, and of course it's before Psycho for Janet Leigh. So
yes,
even though they seem to be big names, I don't know what they were big for before those features. But and Robert Wagner must have been way down the ladder because he's billed third. But he really looks like Prince Valiant.
Pretty convincing Prince Valiant.
Yeah, I will say
that's his real hair.
Yeah, right.
He grew the Prince Valiant.
Okay, cool. I will say the stuntman, Prince Valiant's stuntman, whoever that guy was awesome.
Yeah,
because he is leaping from tall heights. He's parkouring all over the place and like swinging around and jumping into windows and doing all sorts of stuff. And I was like, holy cow, who's this guy?
All right. Well, should we describe the plot of the film?
Yes. Okay.
So essentially, it's very similar to the comic. Some things have been changed. I think they're from, instead of being from Thule, they're from Scandia.
Scandia, yes.
Just which, much like Thule, is just like a romantic way to refer to that part of the world. They're in exile in a castle this time, not in the Fens.
Yes. Wait, they are in the Fens. They're in a castle in the Fens, but Arthur has allowed them to stay there.
Yes.
They have a relationship with Camelot already.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Val leaves the castle to seek his fortune, essentially.
Yes, but his mother is alive. She doesn't die. But one of their scouts goes out and comes back and says they're being chased by this guy called Slygon, who's the guy that defeated them in Scandia.
He's the usurper. Yeah. He's the one that's thrown them out of their kingdom and taken over.
Right.
And there's also a religious element. Slygon and his followers are... Yeah, there's a heavy...
This movie's so Christian. Yeah.
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 Yes, the Val and his family are Christians.
Yeah.
Much like King Arthur. I don't know how Christian Val is in the comics. I don't think I read far enough for that ever to be mentioned.
It hasn't been mentioned in year one anyway.
Right,
yeah.
But in this, it's very important. Their Christianity is very important because it's one of the ways that they're defined against the evil usurper Slygon, who is a pagan. Presumably, he worships the Norse gods. Yeah. And so they found safe harbor in this Christian land.
Right, but Slygon's coming for them for this. So this scout says, "You guys have to run away. You got to get the whole family and get away from this castle." And King Ord is like, "I'm not going to do that." But Val can go to Camelot. They're going to send him like Kal-El. They're going to send him from Krypton. They're going to send him to Camelot to be safe. And he's like, "Okay, I'll go and become a knight and come back." Is basically, and then on the way he encounters a black knight who meets a bunch of Vikings on the shore and cuts a deal with them, and he accidentally ends up in a fight with them. He falls off this cliff that he was peeking over, and again, stuntman, great job here. And he fights this black knight, and then he ends up just by chance running into Sir Gawain, who is known to the family again because of this existing relationship with Camelot.
Chucks the rock at his head. Any sequence on horseback looks great.
Yeah, you could tell this guy directed 100 westerns because the horse scenes are really great. I will say there's kind of some logic is missing from them, like when he falls off the cliff and has to fight the Black Knight and his squire, whoever he's with. Suddenly the Vikings are nowhere to be seen. And then he's able to go around a corner on his horse, and the other guy shoots past on his horse as if he hasn't seen him disappear around. There's a few moments but the horse chases are great.
Anything with the horses in is really good, but a lot of the action sequences are they tend to be a bit tame. Not tame. They're not shot in a very dynamic way. I guess in modern movie making, we have a lot of cuts, we have a lot of zooms, and things like that.
Yes.
A lot of the scenes are shot in I'm getting ahead of myself, but there are scenes later where Val is training to be a squire. He's training with Sir Gawain. They're having sword fights. They're practicing with the lance, and it's all just from one angle.
Right.
Like, people will just be moving around in shot,
Yeah, right.
just in one, like just walking about
Yeah.
doing things.
Yeah.
There's a sequence later on where Val is escaping from confinement, where he takes apart, I think it's a bed, or some kind of like or perhaps a device for torture, but the frame of it is rope.
Yeah.
Upon which a person rests, and there's a long sequence where Val takes apart this rope, sort of like camp bed.
Yeah.
And it goes. the camera's just sort of in the corner of the room.
Yes.
And Val's just sort of walking around, pulling at the ropes. He goes around to the other side of the bed. He pulls at the ropes a bit more. He decides he can't loosen the rope. He gets up. He walks to the other side of the room. He picks up a stick or he yanks a stick or a piece of metal off the wall. He walks back to the bed. He uses the stick to loosen some of the rope. He then starts unraveling the rope and pulling it out. And this is all one take.
Okay.
And the camera doesn't move.
I'm going to say I liked this scene, and I'll tell you why I liked it, because this reminded me the most of him capturing the horse in the comics, and the trouble he had to go through to capture that horse and make kind of weapons out of what was available, and that kind of thing. So for me, I sure it was directed in a static way, but it was for me, it was a more Prince Valiant moment than some of the other moments in the movie, where he's kind of automatically he's a little less bumbling maybe. I love the scene. He does throw a rocket at Sir Gawain, which is something he does in the comic. He throws a rock at someone, and they're like, "You throw a rock at me? Like, we're knights. Like, this is not how we do things in the world."
I have no problem with the premise of Valiant's escape. It's just the way it's shot.
Sure,
That's
sure.
all. I mean, I kind of felt like the cameraman just set up his camera and then went off and got lunch.
Yeah. That said, there's a lot of location shooting here, which is great. I love, like, you see when he goes to the cliffs, yes, there is some rear projection in some moments, especially when they're reverse view, but sometimes he looks out over and onto the coast, and he's looking out on the coast, like they're there shooting it there. And that stuff was really great. And also, we didn't mention that this also, much like Swamp Thing last week, has awesome opening credits, because they actually used Hal Foster artwork in it, and they used the actual Prince Valiant font for the logo. When that happens in a movie, one of these movies for this podcast, this genre, let's call it, I love it when they do that. It's like they're saying, yeah, we're there's no shame. We're getting this from this awesome comic book. Although, now that I've had a week to think about Swamp Thing, I'm like, maybe they're like, we're making a stupid movie because it came from these stupid comics. That might have been what their message was there. But I think in this case, they were like, these comics are glorious, and we're going to bring you that same glory. Look at this awesome artwork. Look at this tournament that Hal Foster has drawn. Look at Val fighting these guys on this bridge. We're going to bring you this awesome stuff in this movie. So I did love those opening credits, and I loved the location shoots. I love the horse stuff. Yes, and especially the final fight, and I don't know if the final fight is a bit more cutty, but the gear that they've given these guys is literally tin, and the Foley artists are like, how can we make this sound more like tin? So everything just clangs. It feels like you've dropped tinfoil in your kitchen.
And it's crumpling.
It crumples. It literally crumples. Yeah.
Oh, it's such a shame. It really spoiled that scene for me, because like the swords that they have look so goofy.
Yeah.
They're oversized. They look like children's toys that you would get in a show bag.
Yeah.
Like big plastic children's toys.
Yeah.
And they're wailing on one another with these goofy toys, and they make this wang sound, as you pointed out.
Yeah.
And that, unfortunately, that really spoiled it for me.
Yeah.
I mean, couldn't you have got some better props than that? In some other ways, I really liked the way the film looked. So as we've said, we had those nice locations. They actually went to some castles, I think, they had some decent matte paintings.
You remember the shot where he looks at the deer? He looks at the field of deer that run away from him. How'd they get that? That was amazing.
Yeah,
that was so great.
They must have found some deer. I love how brightly colored they are.
Yes.
Now, I think that's something. I mean, it's very Hollywood in the 50s. Everything is extremely. First of all, it's in Technicolor, but also everyone is. The tournament is so brightly colored. Everyone is wearing these beautiful, bright colors.
Yeah.
All the tents have brightly colored flags on them. all the knights, their surcoats are all bright colors. It looks like a Renaissance fair. It looks so charming.
Yeah.
And that's something I think with modern films and modern television shows, we lose that, because there's an idea now that realism in representing the past is all about grimness, and mud and darkness, and also to our modern eyes, garish colors are now associated with cheapness, and not with expense, as it would have been in those days when only the very rich could have garish colors.
Yeah.
So I think that's something we've lost a bit. I think we've gone too far in the other direction now. Everything's a bit too muted and modern looking in our representations of the past. So I really enjoyed that kind of throwback to a really brilliantly coloured festival kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, and I think some of the matte and model shots look really good too. I think Camelot looks really great. It looked pretty real. It didn't look like a model to me.
Yeah, it did. Someone spent money on some of this stuff.
But I will say, in a vacuum, this movie looks really great in those terms you've described. But I also kept thinking about the Adventures of Robin Hood from 1938 with Errol Flynn, which is the most glorious looking movie of this type.
Yes, and that's where this movie falters, because compared to other great historical epics of the time, there's no comparison.
Maybe nothing really compares to Adventures of Robin Hood, because that movie is just beginning to end is awesome. It's just awesome. And I guess why not make a movie of a similar ilk, but I guess it's almost 20 years later. In 1954, there's no video. A lot of people won't have seen that.
No, and
so it's kind of maybe it's filling a gap. I don't know.
I think this film, even compared to that film, of course, it doesn't measure up. But also compared to, I think, other films of the time of this type, the historical kind of epic, this film is not very good. Some of the props very silly. The way it's shot, pretty boring. The plot leaves a bit to be desired.
Well, okay, so
it's essentially like it's like a series. It's a little bit like a series of Prince Valiant adventures running sort of from one into the next, sort of self-contained little vignettes.
I think you're kind of right.
The next story, because halfway through the film, there'll be these subplots or sub-stories, like the mix-up between the girls. So Wayne and Val, it's so tedious.
So the romantic plot is very boring, and that's actually so. I would say so that this Black Knight thing becomes a mystery, because they find out that some Black Knight is collaborating and is trying to overthrow the king. So plot is afoot. Now, as soon as they arrive in Camelot, James Mason, who's top billed, but it looks very suspicious. It's his goatee or something, I don't know. But he's very suspicious. But so this first half of the movie I really enjoyed, and I loved the camaraderie between all the characters, and I loved the dialogue. I thought it was really well written, especially James Mason's lines were so well delivered. Maybe it was him as an actor.
James Mason's great. Yeah. Look, I agree. James Mason was really good as Sebrecht.
And
he's Sebrecht, isn't he?
But then that plot gets Sir Brack, and then only one letter off of Black, the Black Knight, Brack. And then
great foreshadowing, and it's all spoiled.
It's forgotten. They just leave that plot line for a very long time. Because there's this romantic plot that comes in and some confusion about which girl is in love with Sir Gawain and which girl Valiant's in love with, and there's all this kind of business. And then they have a tournament in which the
hand of the
so Valiant enters secretly as Gawain, because Gawain's been injured, but he enters because the hand of one of the Princess Alita, not Eileen for some reason. Eileen is played by Debra Paget, who's not super famous, but maybe if you're a young man, when you're a young man, you might have gone to YouTube to watch the snake dance from the Indian Tomb, Fritz Lang's The Indian Tomb, which for some reason got past the censors in the 1950s. I don't understand how or why, but that is something else. Anyway, so when he disguised himself, I'm like, wait a second, this happens in Robin Hood.
Yeah.
This is exactly straight out. Why are we going through all? What about the Black Knight stuff? Don't we?
Yes.
And I think at this stage, Valiant has become suspicious of Sir Brack because he's like, wait a second, he wasn't there when I got attacked by those guys. Like, where did he go?
Well, he outright states it. Here's where it's spoiled because Sir Brack is smarmy. He's a little too well spoken, and we established that he's born on the wrong side of the sheets, as they say. He's a bastard, and that's always a bad sign in any kind of historical fiction to be a bastard.
But he delivers a great line. He says, "The law is the law, and King Arthur is king," and he delivers it in such a convincing way.
He's sympathetic enough. He does sympathetic things. Yeah. He says sympathetic things. You know, he and it's only with hindsight that, you know, his offer to take on Val as a squire straight away, his willingness to have Val run away with him to go on a quest to find the Black Knight when Sir Gawain, he should be staying with Sir Gawain as his sworn squire. All that stuff would be great foreshadowing if it wasn't for the fact that twice the movie just tells us that it's Sir Brack.
Yeah.
So, as you said, Prince Valiant becomes suspicious of him and straight up says to Sir Gawain when Sir Gawain's on his sickbed, "I think Sir Brack wants to seize the kingship."
Yeah.
And it's like, no. And then later on, they even show Sir Brack talking to a hidden figure, and the hidden figure gives Sir Brack the ring that belongs to Valiant's father, which is the only thing because Valiant swore an oath that if he ever received the ring, he would return to his father right away. And he's also sworn an oath to King Arthur that he'll stay in the castle in King Arthur's custody because he's committed the crime of impersonating a knight on the field in the tournament. So Valiant leaves the castle. When Valiant gets the ring, he leaves the castle. But he receives the ring because a mysterious figure gives Sir Brack the ring, and then Sir Brack drops it into Valiant's cell. And I was yelling at the film at this point. So, you've got this this scene is backwards.
Yeah.
Sir Brack should be the invisible figure.
Giving
it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because a few scenes later, Sir Brack is revealed as the Black Knight, and I'm just like, yes, obviously. I already knew that. Because you showed him. Who was that invisible guy? It's almost like they got the stage note, like they got the script mixed up. The director got confused about who was supposed to stand where. Yeah,
I almost think they should have, because there's a thing that happens in year one of the comic where these guys plot against the king and they're going to take Sir Gawain hostage, or they're going to hold him for ransom.
Yes.
And that we're told from panel one these guys are planning this thing. So in the movie, maybe they shouldn't have tried to hide it. Maybe they should have said from the first minute we saw Brack that he was black.
That's why it's so confusing, because they do such a good job of laying kind of the groundwork.
Yes.
Because he does things that appear sympathetic but actually serve his agenda, and then they just spoil it.
Yeah.
It's so baffling to me.
Yeah.
So odd. And then halfway or in the final third of the film, we get an entirely new antagonist.
Yes.
And an entirely new subplot.
Yes. Well, we knew that Slygon was coming for them, so I was kind of expecting that to happen from minute one. I was expecting Slygon to show up. I was surprised that the parents got captured off screen. It's just announced that Valiant's parents have been captured. And I guess they go all the way back to Scandia. I guess it's not that far away.
It's just so much for Ultima Thule.
Yeah,
it's just next door.
they get transported there.
Well, he's very definitely a Viking in this, isn't he? Everyone talks constantly about how Valiant has Viking blood. He has a Viking temper.
Yeah.
A Viking knight, they will say.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
they sail back, and then now Sligon is the antagonist, played very impressively by an Italian boxer, I think, or perhaps a Spanish boxer.
Yeah.
An enormous man. Not much acting talent, but certainly a very impressive figure.
Yeah. And there's a big fight at the castle with King Ord's few loyal men versus 50 times more Vikings of Sligon's men. For some reason, Sligon's men never scream when they're killed or call out for help, so Prince Val is able to kind of get through a few of them.
Quietly.
They fight quietly. They don't ever call for help or announce that Valiant has escaped.
Valiant's escaped from prison, and he's running through the castle, and whenever someone spots him, instead of calling out, "Here he is," they fight him silently.
What was the deal with the pig guts they were launching? Were these pig corpses full of oil or something?
Those are oil bladders.
Okay.
So instead of the oil cauldron, the oil is this is actually more accurate than the cauldrons. So the oil is kept inside these skins.
Okay, so they kill the creature and then.
Yeah, they're oil skins essentially. Yeah. So
and then would they empty the guts and then fill it with oil, or how would it work? Or they just pump it full of oil?
It's a cured skin.
That
serves as a reservoir in which to store oil, and then you dump the oil on the invading army, and then you light it.
Right. So the skin is intact, or do they sew it back together or something? Or
it's like leather essentially.
Okay.
It's a leather. Yeah.
Okay.
And a fun little. I was complaining about historical anachronism before. There's a little bit of historical accuracy.
Right.
Titillate you.
Yeah. Also, there's no witches or dragons.
No. Oh, that was interesting because when I was reading online about Prince Valiant, most descriptions or synopsis of Prince Valiant almost always mention the witch and the prophecy.
Yeah.
And she's missing from the. They've just gone for a straight up.
Well, his mother doesn't die, right? So. The witch's prophecy is kind of tied into the mother's death.
I suppose.
Thematically or some way, like that's the first step of the prophecy.
I feel like it's more important is establishing his fate as a rover and a wanderer.
Yeah, but if I was making this movie
in this film, he's very much seeking to reestablish his kingdom.
Yes.
To become a knight.
Yeah.
And then to reestablish his kingdom.
Yes, there's no wandering the land because his mother died. That's not his motivation. I would say if I was making this movie in 2022, 100% I would put a giant crocodile in there. And maybe a dinosaur. I'd put that in there too because I think those would be really shocking, fun moments.
Yeah. The tournament would be way more drab. And there would be mud everywhere.
These were really, you're right though. The outfits were super colorful in this. I like the comics, so I would definitely keep that. I noticed Morgan Todd was the doctor. Is he a mythical figure like from Arthurian legend or something? Or because he's in the Valiant comic as well. I think they mentioned Morgan Todd being the doctor.
Interesting.
I was like, is this like a Merlin type character? Yeah.
We can look that up for next week.
Okay. Yes, that's right. Oh my God.
We will see a modern or a more modern representation of Prince Valiant.
Yeah.
In preparation for next week.
Yeah.
All right. Was there anything else you'd like to say about the film?
No, I think I actually covered most of my notes, and like I said, I did because of the camaraderie, especially between Gawain and Valiant, even the Sir Brack and Valiant, they were so. I like it when people get along with each other in a movie.
Yes.
I don't like artificial.
Brack and Valiant's interaction was very. It just would have been so much more impressive if they hadn't made those odd choices to spoil that Brack was the villain of the piece.
Yeah.
Or at least the first half of the piece.
Yeah.
Odd.
Yeah, but I did love the first hour. Oh, the accents, yeah. Let's talk about it. I actually, I was like, should I make a comment about the accents? But actually, I kind of don't care. And the thing for me is, 1,300 years ago, they were not speaking English of any recognizable form anyway. So let Wagner speak with an English accent, an American accent. And Sir Gawain, the guy that plays Sir Gawain, has the most, like, I don't know, Chicago accent. And he doesn't try to cover it. It's one of those movies where now if you made this movie and half the cast was speaking in American accents and half was speaking in British accents like James Mason, you'd be like, this is terrible. I was like, who cares? I was like, who cares? It's 1,300 years ago, and it doesn't. They wouldn't be speaking this kind of English anyway. To me, it was the fact this is Prince Valiant was written by a guy from Halifax in 1937 in the first place, so it's kind of already there's a precedent for it not being right, if you know what I mean. That was my... But yes, please, you say what you want to say about the accents.
No, that's all. You pretty much summed it up. You have a variety of accents in this movie, of clashing accents, and the most jarring of all, of course, is Valiant himself, because he has this strong American accent.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of... They've cast a few, British character actors to play, because, no one looks quite so good in chainmail as a...
Yeah, I would say that Wagner he really looks like Prince Valiant. He has the face, like the facial features.
He does look like Prince Valiant, and I mean, he did go to the effort of growing the hair.
And he was 24 at the time, so he's kind of maybe the right age. Enough. Yeah.
I don't love his performance.
Okay.
Though. I understand this is, and I think, why is this? I mean, there's one thing to do. This is perhaps a strength of the caption storytelling, where we can get a real sense of Valiant's character without him saying and doing a bunch of things that seem a bit silly. Valiant can seem a bit... In the film, he seems a bit petulant at times.
Yeah.
He acts... He seems a bit like a... He acts out like a teenager at times. It all seems a bit less... how you say, noble rebel and a bit more spoilt brat.
Right.
And that was one of the things that I didn't enjoy about the movie as much. But it's a minor quibble.
Yeah, I think I'm just flipping through the comic now.
When Valiant was on screen and talking, quite often I was thinking, oh God, shut up. Sorry, you were saying you were flipping through.
Just looking through it, like he has it's not just the captions. I mean, Hal Foster draws him with a range of expressions.
Oh yeah.
A range of emotion on his face. Yeah.
He's much more sympathetic and easy to identify with in the comics than in the film, I think. Seems a bit petulant.
I will say I think we're on episode 8. I think the pattern is that I tend to be more merciful, more forgiving of the movies.
Oh yeah.
I think that's how it's been shaping up. So okay, well let's do our evaluation. It's the
dynamic we have,
yeah.
So people can figure out which of the two of us whose advice they...
Well, I say everything louder and faster, but you say everything more rationally.
That's very
maybe that's the.
Shall we do our questions?
All right, comic, yay or nay?
That's a yay.
Yeah, yay, and
not just as. Go on.
I was going to say this is going to be like a test for future episodes as well, because when we do this comic again next week, of course, well, I don't know, maybe year 2 of Prince Valiant will suck, who knows, but it's a weird it's a weird situation where you've got like 70 years of history and you got to pick a year, or you got to pick bits and pieces to make a movie out of it, or bits and pieces to read. We're only reading 50 pages a week or whatever is what our guideline is, our unfair, irrational guideline for the show. But anyway, yeah, huge. This is one of the all-time greats for me. And again, some people might say, well, there's no word balloons, so is it really an illustrated story, really a comic? I think certainly there's some panel-to-panel stuff happening. It's not a picture book.
It's absolutely. It has panels.
Yeah.
It has. I mean, I think you'd have to be some kind of
strange
pedant to say that it's not a comic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very clearly a comic.
Yeah.
Is a comic without is a silent comic without word balloons or captions not a comic? Is it just a series of paintings?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, look, that's a whole question. That's a question for another time.
Yeah.
But my answer also is yes. This is a great discovery for me. Fun to read, interesting as a piece of history.
Yeah.
And exceptional that it's still going. I'll have to see if I can read some of the ones that are coming out now.
Yeah, they're on their web. Some of the Schultz Yates ones are on the Prince or King Features website or something. I think you can look at.
I think I'll have to have a look at that for next week,
Yeah.
and I'll get back about that.
But they don't. I mean, they might be good, but they certainly don't look like Foster. And Foster didn't even stick with the strip himself. He had other artists come in pretty early on in the run, including great.
I think he went right up to this early 70s.
Yes. Oh, you're right. Yes, 1970. You're right. So actually,
he continued to write. Sorry to interrupt. He continued to write the script even when he had other people drawing it because I believe he had arthritis.
And the first artist to take over was Gray Morrow, who was the artist who took over Friday Foster at the very end.
Amazing.
Yeah. He's also, he's a...
There's synchronicity right there.
Yeah. Okay, so big yay for the comic. What about the movie? I'm going to say...
Go ahead. You're going to say yay, aren't you? I'm calling it.
I want to say
yay. You answer for me and I'll answer for you.
I want to say yay for the first half and I want to say nay for the second half. So I got to come down. I'm going to say... And I also want to say yay in case 97 is going to be a nay. But I am going to come down nay. I'm going to say I love that the respect they showed to the comics. But I think watch Adventures of Robin Hood instead if you're looking for something of this type.
One of the other great, or Ben-Hur or Cleopatra or one of the other great.
Yeah. But if you want to see something with the bright popping colors and the swashbuckling, I mean, Robin Hood with Errol Flynn is it. What about you? How are you going to come down on this?
Well, since you came down nay and you apparently liked it more than me, what can I say?
Yes.
Also nay.
Yeah. Okay.
But you know what I will say, and would you like to ask me the next question?
Okay. Adaptation, yay or nay?
It's a yay.
Okay.
So nay for watching the film, but yay for the adaptation.
Okay.
I think it's a very kind of like it really captures the comic.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the color, I keep coming back to the colors. In terms of it's very colorful. The way it tells the story the way it kind of has these almost self-contained subplots that blend into one another as the film goes on, and yet with a sort of overarching meta plot, we could almost describe it. Prince Valiant's haircut.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all there.
Yeah, I think they did. I wish the magic was in it a bit more, that kind of stuff. But I think you're right. I think they really tried to do it. I think they didn't come up with a plot hole. They didn't come up with a whole cloth plot. Like they didn't come up with something from scratch. They actually tried to use the skeleton of the story of Prince Valiant with some changes so that they could bring Camelot in right very early. In order to do that, they made some changes. So I think that's kind of forgivable. So I'm going to say yay as an adaptation too. I think they did what I think they was smart hiring a guy that did westerns to do it maybe as well. In terms of the fights and the horseback stuff and yeah.
So basically, this is the best adaptation of an okay film that we're telling you not to watch.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And we'll just have to see how we feel next week after watching 1997.
Right. Okay. So what I'll say about the 97 one is, it's very hard to find. So I went on eBay and I found one DVD that I think was from Hungary or something, and there's only one. I don't know if it's ever been released. If you quote unquote sail the high seas, which is what I did, you can find a copy. And that copy had one seater, and it took many days to down. And I thought, oh my God, it's not going to download. I'm going to have to order this DVD from Hungary. So I couldn't find it on any streaming service. So I don't know if by sailing the high seas, I've cost this company any money because they've not made it available anywhere anyway. As far as I know.
Hungarian families going without their dinner.
Yeah, I think that was a used one anyway from like the early 2000s. I don't think it was like a new DVD. I don't think there's a current printing of it in any format. Although it has an all-star cast, which we will talk about next week.
Fantastic.